What's up, everybody? Welcome to CFP Talks. My name is Joe Nissam, and with me, as always, is Mr. Raman Singh. He's got his piano out, he's got his fancy books. I'd say you're a teacher. If I had to guess, you're a
Oh,
teacher.
thank you. Thank you. Call me Teacher Ramen or
A
Coach
professor, a professor.
Professor. A professor.
What's up, Raman? How are you?
I'm good, man. No complaints. I'm actually excited with the new cycle, and I know a lot of students are getting on board with studying. And most importantly, I feel like every cycle that comes out, I continue to be a better version of myself as a teacher and as an instructor. So the things that I've learned from the previous cycle on how to be a better teacher, I get to apply that in this upcoming cycle. So stoked about that, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's a great attitude because nobody wants a teacher who's doing the same thing over and over again either, right?
right,
We
right.
all want to be better versions of ourselves and take what we've learned, and even if it's the little refining, it's still improvement and it makes a big
100%.
difference.
I mean, I just feel like since I've been tutoring, teaching CFP stuff over the last like 3, 4 years, I don't even remember at this point. But I will say this, my process has evolved significantly. I mean, I'd say it's improved like 10x or 1,000% from where I started, basically. But I know I have a lot of like I would say I want to continue to be better at it. Because the better you are at teaching this stuff, not only, I mean, I'm a practitioner as well, right? I have my own practice. It just allows me to have better conversations with my clients too.
Of course.
So it's a win-win. I get to teach students and I get to teach my clients. I can't ask for anything else, man.
Yeah, I'm not to get too off topic, but do you feel like you're having better conversations because you can ask better questions, or because your understanding of the material allows you to get more into the objectives or the emotional part of money? Like, what do you feel like that does for you more so?
Yeah, I'd say it helps with what everyone wants the most. It is how to work with prospects. When you're meeting prospective clients, they've heard it all at this point. Like, oh, I'm gonna make your portfolio look better, and I'm gonna, this, that, and that. Your fees are too high. But with the enhanced knowledge base, you can go beyond that conversation. I mean, I can sit here and talk to small business owners about how to make their taxes more efficiently, by restructuring whether it's an LLC to an S corp, all the way out to a client who's, worth 20 plus $1 million, and then start talking about charitable planning or anywhere from estate planning or using some of the assets to take advantage of the estate exemption and get that assets out of the estate. I actually landed a close to a $30 million client with that conversation because no one else talked to him about this kind of stuff. Can you believe that? Like the guy is young. He's like 48 years old, worth about 30 plus $1 million, and that was the conversation that kind of won him over because of my knowledge base and intellect that I had in all comprehensive planning, especially estate planning.
Well, I
So
think I can believe that because I think that when you're looking at the world of finance that we exist in, everybody's got to sell something, and
yeah,
everybody's got to meet a quota, and they got to make a living. And so, sometimes it is much easier to sell the product of the moment than build the relationship in the future.
yeah,
And I think that's a very hard thing. It is always like when I was at Smith Barney, and I was fortunate enough to be linked in with a group, but there was still a sense of urgency to close clients because if I didn't get to $5 million in year one, I was fired. And if I
mm,
didn't get to 10 million by year two, I was fired. And, I was fortunate enough that in my first 6 months were awful. I mean, I wasn't, they were so bad. Like every client, I was closing a lot of clients, but they were all small, like $50,000 accounts, $60,000 accounts.
yeah.
And, so you're running up against the gun and you're at the mercy of, I'm closing a lot of clients, but I'm not necessarily making headway. it's hard to have those conversations, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%, man. 100%.
You
Well,
know, and
Joe, what do we got to talk about today?
yeah.
How are we gonna motivate our listeners, our CFP students right now? Because the exam's coming up and they want to hear something from us
Well, I
today.
mean, along those lines, I think it's very much that similar conversation is that, I think our average CFP student is busy.
Yes.
Right. So,
Very.
I drop off kids in the morning. I go to work. I work my day. I try to get some time in at the gym. Maybe my significant other is picking up the kids because I drop them off in the morning. I go to they go to the gym in the morning. I go to the gym in the evening. We come home. We have dinner as a family. We put the kids down, and now we get some time together. And I think this is a very hard thing. Like, where do I fit in my CFP study?
Mhm.
Like I barely have enough time as it is. If everything feels rushed, I feel like I'm constantly on it and at it and doing it and you know, I'm halfway into everything and now I don't have time during the week to study, so I'm going to do a majority of my studying on the weekends.
Yeah.
Right? So if you tell me, Joe, you need 20 hours a week, all right, I'll do 4 hours during the week and then I'll basically treat Saturday and Sunday like a work day from 8 to 4.
Yeah.
Can you do it that way? Can you kind of game the system in that way where you can put in all those hours during the week or excuse me, put in all those hours on the weekend, not do much during the week and still pass the exam?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? I feel like I mean if I was doing a road trip from Arizona to Florida, maybe I would, if I'm working during the weekdays, I'll probably just stay during weekdays and catch my rhythm on the weekends if I'm driving. But studying is, I feel like, more like fitness, right? You can't just be like, well, I'm gonna kind of do whatever fitness what I can on weekdays for 15 minutes or maybe 5 minutes, or I'm not gonna do it at all. But on the weekends, though, I'm gonna hit the gym for 3 hours and get all my workout in. And I feel like having consistency is far more important than the idea of, okay, let me just delay on the weekdays because I have priorities and then try to attack it on the weekends. In my professional opinion, and being a CFP teacher, instructor, tutor for the last 3, 4 plus years, I haven't seen any of that work. But I would love to hear what your take is on that.
Well, do you think it is possible to actually move forward in that time frame? Like, do you think you can actually learn material when you're just studying on the weekends, or do you think it ends up becoming more of a game of maintenance?
Yeah, no, the thing is, our human brain, our brain is a muscle, right? We can't just aggressively make any muscle of our body just go through a rigorous process for a long time period. It just doesn't happen. Our muscle just gives up. I mean, brain fatigue is a real thing, and you know, I'm sure the listeners out there or people who are watching this podcast, like you probably have done it where you're like, I've been studying for 4 hours. I just don't even know what I'm reading right now. Well, yeah, because you're tired. Your brain's tired. Resting is very important for the exam. So the 8 hour ordeal, if you're studying for the exam is 2 months away, 3 months away, and you're studying 8 hours only on the weekends, it's it's not going to be as beneficial versus if you had the consistency of studying that hour and a half during the day, hour and a half during the evening on a weekday, and then spend maybe, I don't know, 3 hours on a Saturday instead of 8 hours
Mm,
on a Saturday.
yeah.
I feel like that consistency will outweigh and beat the I'm going to study 8 hours on Saturday, 8 hours a day on Sunday every single time.
Yeah, I agree. I think honestly trying to study 8 hours on a Saturday or Sunday, it is the fastest way to fail. And I think it's a complete waste of time because I tend to think about studying like charging a battery, like a rechargeable battery. And if we
Mhm.
think about our brain like a rechargeable battery, you know, you you charge it up at night by doing other, you're out with your family, or you're exercising, or you're just spending time with your loved ones, or you gotta give your brain time to recharge. And when you drain it down and you get to the end of that battery, that's it.
Yeah.
So even though you might feel like, oh, I'm here and I'm sacrificing and I'm putting in the time, don't make the mistake of thinking because you're putting in a lot of effort that it's necessarily going to lead to the best outcome.
Agreed.
The process is more important than necessarily I want to try real hard. Well, again, I want my Tesla to run for 8 hours. It's not going to do it. No matter how hard I want it to happen, it's never going to happen. Once the battery is done, and we kind of all know this, it really feels like you are pushing yourself so hard for so little. And
Yeah.
that's the point, in my opinion, that you stop. When you're working that hard for that little, it's really ineffective. And I think you have to be very honest with yourself as a test taker that if you can get the repetition,
Mhm.
and like you said, it's like going to the gym. If you go to the gym on Saturday and Sunday and you work out for 4 hours, you can't walk on Monday.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what have you done other than, and this is the thing that all of us kind of go in not necessarily understanding the role of fatigue in our study plan is that if you study for 16 hours on the weekend, by Monday, even if you are studying, you're getting nothing done.
Hmm. Agreed.
It
So,
takes you to Wednesday or Thursday to recover.
right, no, 100%. So, Joe, let me ask you, so how are you seeing students, or how have you seen students in the past where they're trying to, game the system or cut corners? That way, our listeners and our watchers could be like, okay, if I'm doing this, perhaps I need to correct my course of action.
Well, I think if you're the student that's coming in, and you've seen this too, Raman, where it's, I read the shortened down version of the notes. Okay. I read the notes thoroughly. I read them 4 times. And then I took a bunch of practice questions. And, I initially, it was great. I went from not knowing anything to then being able to get 5 or 6 questions right out of every 10. But then that's where it stopped. My progress just halted. And that's because the shortcut will work to a point. It's a shortcut. But if you need to have a more thorough understanding of what you're doing, which is what this exam requires, you're never going to get over that hump. And that's where a lot of CFP students live is that I can't get over that 65%,
Mhm.
67%. And that is more often than not that you're missing elements of your fundamentals. And because I read down the boiled version, it's like, when you did a book report in high school and you read the Cliff's Notes, you didn't actually read the book, and the teacher calls on you, is like, what is the underlying theme? And you're like, um, well, the characters, and you're like, and you're trying, and that's what it feels like when you read down, like, again, when you're doing something like self-employment tax, or more importantly, when the CFP question connects 2 or 3 different topics in a
Mhm.
single question. You get a retirement and a tax question combined, an
Yeah,
investment and a retirement question combined. And all you've done is read down the boiled version of the notes, which again, it's a very efficient thing, but it's not necessarily as effective as we want it to be. And that's where, when you're going into a review program, it's not that these review programs are bad or having boiled down versions of notes are bad, but it predicates itself on you knowing the material or seeing the big version of the material before you're seeing the small version. If the only thing you've seen is the small version, you're going to be very, very, very confused at some point. And you're
right.
going to develop some very, 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 very bad habits.
I mean, I think you're right on point with what you just said. Is if especially you're spending the time studying, so make sure it's effective and it's you're doing exactly what you should be doing rather than trying to cut corners. I mean, the whole point of our discussion today, right?
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. And it's just like anything else. If you try to do the shortcutted version, like again, if I wanted to lose 20 pounds and I just ate half the food I was eating, at some point my body will shut down,
Yeah.
you know? And yes, it's a very effective shortcut. And yes, you can lose 5 pounds in a week by cutting down what you're eating in half and eating lettuce every meal, but you can't sustain on that. And that's the way most of us are going into this, is that we are trying to find, I'm busy. I need the fastest, bestest, most effective, and I'm willing to pay for it. And we're happy to take your money. We are.
You
But
got to put
it's,
the effort in,
you
man.
know, but you still got to put the effort in. And that's the key, is that we will shorten down the process for you. We will make it as easy as possible. And that's not just from our standpoint, that's from any standpoint of any program. We can make it faster, we can make it better, but we can't do your part.
I agree.
And I think that's the key here, is that, you know, if you're trying to game the system by going, hey, I need 20 hours. Well, if I do 16 on the weekend, that only means I need 4 during the week. Doesn't work that way.
That's not how it works.
Right. You know, again, and think about your brain like the battery. Once the battery's drained, you're done for the day. And so if you start thinking about it that way, it requires the effort. And if you're sitting there going, well, I don't have the time to do it, then maybe it's not the right time for the exam.
I agree. You gotta make the time. You gotta make the time. And it's not just on the weekends. It's gonna be consistency, over yes, you're gonna spend 20 hours a week, but spending 16 hours on the weekends and 4 on the weekdays not enough. You need to have the consistency during the weekdays and have again, consistency on the weekends. Like anything extra you study on the weekends is a bonus. But
For
that's
sure.
not,
For
that's not
sure.
the real thing.
And I think about it this way, it's like, even if I were, you know, and you know people who diet really well during the week, and then on the weekend they're drinking
You know,
17 beers, you
yeah.
know, and you're like, well, I didn't have any carbs all week, so, you know, and you're like, it doesn't work that way. You don't
That's
get to
not how it
burn the
works.
house down on the weekend and rebuild it during the week. And it's kind of the same thing here, is that you don't get to do nothing during the week. And, you know, and that goes for any project, Ramen. Like, if you were building your deck every weekend, it's going to literally take you 5 years to build it.
Right.
You know, if you put in 2 hours, you came home and for 2 hours every night you did it, then those hours stack up very, very quickly.
Real quick.
And we're not saying you can't do more on the weekend. You just can't put it all on the weekend.
Yes. Absolutely. That's the best thing to do. That's the best thing.
So,
Well, Joe, anything else you want to add on today?
no, with that being said, we hope you enjoyed this video, everybody. Any questions, comments, or concerns, please reach out to Raman or myself, and we will see you guys on our next video.